Good evening. Welcome to A.W. Beatty Career Center, and welcome to Back to School Night, virtually this year, of course. Welcome also to Surgical Sciences. This is our Surgical Sciences program, Operating Room Technology, and I am Mrs. Olszewski, your student's instructor for this program. A little bit about me. I have been a surgical technologist for the last 12 years at UPMC St. Margaret's. I am a senior surgical technologist there. I still work there casually every once in a while. My specialties include orthopedic spine, vascular, thoracics, ear, nose, and throat, bariatrics, and robotics. I loved my time as a surgical technologist. I still consider myself a surgical technologist, and this educator title is very new to me, even though I have educated many people on site for my entire 12 years working there. This season and this environment is very new to me because this is the first surgical sciences program in the state of Pennsylvania. So it's really exciting, and I want to congratulate you and your students for being the inaugural class of a surgical sciences program for career and technical centers in the state. That's very exciting. I'm very excited about it. I hope your students are very excited about it, and I hope you're excited about it as well. We really hope to build this program, build this career, and really bring light to the work that surgical technologists do in a healthcare facility by advocating right here in high school and sending out your students into the healthcare field. So the surgical sciences program consists not just of surgical technology, and I'll talk more in a moment about what a surgical technologist is, but we're also going to discuss sterile processing. And sterile processing is the department in a hospital or in a surgery center that decontaminates, which means to clean of any bodily fluids, blood, anything that may contaminate those instruments during surgery. They clean them, they put them together in trays like this. This is just a small version of an instrument tray that we may use in surgery. The same with these instruments on my setup here. And they put them together in trays for us to get them in the OR, completely organized, clean, and ready to go. And then they sterilize them in large sterilizers and get all of our supplies ready for us for surgeries. The sterile processing department is vital to the success of surgeries. You can imagine that if we are operating with less than perfectly clean and sterilized instruments, the repercussions that could happen to a patient. They could get infected. If we have to wait for instruments, that would elongate surgical time, anesthesia time. So they are crucial to our department and to the operating room. So we will also go over the processes for that in our program. And then your students will be equipped to enter the workforce if they choose upon graduation in a sterile processing department. Currently, there are no requirements to work in a sterile processing department. Someone with no experience could be hired. It is a very underrated job because a lot of people don't know that it exists. You know, we go in for surgery, we go under anesthesia, and then we really don't remember what happens, or we don't know all the steps involved because obviously it is such a closed situation to outside eyes. Not everyone can come and see a surgery. So many people don't know all the moving parts that are involved in a successful surgery and in a successful operating room. So your student, with their skills they learn in this program, could apply to UPMC facility, Allegheny Health Network, any of our hospitals and surgical centers in the area and in the state to work in sterile processing right out of high school and right out of graduation. And even more so, they will be even more equipped and set up for success because they've had 1, 2, 3 years in this program learning the instruments, learning the process, learning what their job here affects their job here. And what's great is that a lot of employees starting out in sterile processing, they don't have any of that information because they don't have previous experience. So your student would really be set above the rest and really set up for success in their job. They could stay in that job if they'd like, or they could work that job while they go to post-secondary school for surgical technology, a surgeon, a circulating nurse in the operating room. So if you have a student that really would like to go into nursing but is also interested in surgery, they can absolutely do both. Our circulators in the state of Pennsylvania are all registered nurses, so that's a career path as well. There are a ton of career paths in surgery that your student could also pursue. Obviously, there is a surgeon, like I previously said, a registered nurse, a surgical technologist, which we'll get into in a moment, but there's also physician's assistants, there's anesthesia, there's surgical sales representatives, there's biomedical engineers, there's surgical perfusionists, and there are a lot other roles and jobs that your student could pursue if they so wish. So more about surgical technology. This is a surgical technologist's workplace. They are front and center with an operative patient, and they are in charge of everything that is sterile or completely free of bacteria and germs in an operating room. They would gown and glove after surgically scrubbing. They would manage this entire sterile field with the surgeon here working on the patient. They have to have an intense knowledge of the instruments, why they're used, when they need to be used, as well as keeping everything at a minimum for infection on the field. On top of all that responsibility, surgical technologists also assist the surgeon in cases. We absolutely have physician's assistants that also can fill that role, but a surgical technologist also does that 99% of the time. Even in a teaching facility, which is something that I came from, we have a lot of resident doctors, medical students, things like that that we're constantly teaching, which is a wonderful thing because it really prepared me for this job. But even in those cases, when we have 4 or 5 people up at this surgical site, that surgeon is relying on me to help them out, assist them, and really critically think and aid them in crisis situations, because my working relationship with that surgeon and my knowledge is right on par with that surgeon as far as an operation goes. They are going to rely on me and any other surgical technologist, even more so than they would some of the other members in the OR. So saying that, as you can see, we have a little mini OR setup here. This is a real operating room table. This is not a real patient, but this is a real operating room table. These are real instruments, real back tables here, real Mayo stands. Some of those terms may sound foreign to you. Your students will learn what those terms are as we're in the program. So as you can see, we're really committed to having adequate real life scenarios for your students. Also, we are planning, and we are going to be turning the room right on the other side of this wall into an operating room suite, complete with OR lights. This bed will be moved over there. We're hoping to get a non-working anesthesia machine because we don't need it to work over there to really set the tone. So when we have full lab days in your student's 2nd or 3rd year, that they can scrub in at our scrub sinks, head on over and we can simulate surgery, and they can run those roles as a surgical technologist, as a circulator, as a sterile processing technician. We will also have an instrument assembly area complete with washers, sterilizers, things of that nature, so they can work on those sterile processing skills as well. I'm incredibly excited for that. I'm also really, really excited for our anatomy and physiology models that we have, as well as our simulations. I have just a few here that I pulled out. Our larger simulations are in our other room, and they're a little too large to adequately show you through a video stream. But some of the anatomy simulations we have, this is our ear, nose, and throat simulation. This shows all of the sinus passages. If you can see in the back here, it's a little bit hard to see, but this is a clear skull that is showing all of our sinuses, as well as we have a spinal column here. And then we get into some more unique surgically specific simulations here. This is obviously a leg, but what you don't see is this leg has several wounds in it. I don't know if you can see that. And there, that one's a little bit better. We also have an arm as well. And what will happen with these simulations is not only can we close these wounds up by learning simple sutures or surgical staples, but then eventually also this leg itself can be incised, and we can also put instruments in and clamps and things like that. So what's great is we could have a leg case for the day. We can prep out the entire OR table, have this leg there, prep it out, have it out for surgery, and with the help of me kind of acting as the surgeon role, we can adequately run through a simulation of what a lower extremity surgery might be like. Some of the larger simulations we have that I'm really, really excited to utilize is we have an abdomen that has an aorta in it, and it simulates bleeding, blood control, things of that nature, and we can completely make incisions down through that and go through all the tissues. So that is another situation where, unbeknownst to the students, I can have it set up that we're in a crisis situation where we need to control bleeding, and that will help the students really critically think and work through those crisis situations as an operative team. So some of the supplies that your students may bring home, you may see, they may speak about, is we have in the classroom to learn the instruments. As you can see, this may look to you absolutely like a lot of instruments. This is a small fraction of the instruments that your students will be learning. We have many, many, many surgical instruments. So I have 2 classroom sets of flashcards for instruments that I'm really excited to use. I don't know about your students, but I'm more of a visual learner. So I really like things like this. We'll be going over medical terminology. This is our medical terminology book that I will be making packets out of for your students, as well as human anatomy coloring book. I don't know if any of your students have told you that they got a coloring book in surgical sciences, but I actually used one of these in college, and it was phenomenal for helping to learn the body systems. As you go in and you color it, it really helps you to remember, and then you will retain different body systems and how those body systems work. And then we have our surgical technology textbook. This Surg Tech book really goes over in depth about the role of a surgical technologist, healthcare facilities, accreditation, standards, things like that, that are in a healthcare facility specifically to surgical technology. And then this, we call this Alexander's, even though it says care of the surgical patient, of the patient in surgery, excuse me. This book is phenomenal because it will go through different surgical procedures and bit by bit tell your student the process of the surgery, what happens in the surgery, their role in the surgery, the instruments used in the surgery. So this is a really great resource that we'll be utilizing. We'll also be going through anatomy and physiology over our 1, 2, or 3 years together. But ultimately, this will be a 3-year program for our sophomores when they come in 3 years, when we get a whole fresh new batch. And those of you who your students are sophomores now, they'll be the first class with 3 full years in surgical sciences. So I don't know if you could tell, but I'm really, really excited about this. I'm incredibly passionate about the career field. I really feel that surgical technology is in the dark in medicine. Not a lot of people know who we are or what we do. And as you can see just from the short presentation I gave you, it's a really, really important career in medicine. And it's critical to patient care, especially in surgery. So, as always, my email is on our AW Beatty website, and my phone number is there as well. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to me. This is an odd season for everybody, and we're all learning as we go as far as virtual teaching and really making sure that the students get their hands-on experience while they're here at AW Beatty, because that's what we're here for. I'm really excited for the rest of the year with your students, and I'm always available if you have any questions or you would like to talk more about the program. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope it opened your eyes a little bit more to the field of surgery and the different career paths associated with it. And I hope to see you on site maybe this spring. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.